If you travel across Africa, one thing becomes apparent very quickly. Most people don't own cars. Across the continent, there is roughly 42 vehicles per 1,000 people. In the United States of America, that number is 700. 42 vehicles per 1,000 people versus 700 per 1,000 vehicles. That's not a difference, that's a chasm. If you are global manufacturers and you see 700 cars per 1,000 people, 42 cars per 1,000 people, it does not take a rocket scientist to say where growth can potentially come in the future, and that is attractive to anyone.
If you think of the growth in the continent, there is a huge opportunity as Africa grows for what we have.
Today, we see Africa as very much the last frontier in automotive. The new vehicle market today is probably 1.2 million. In Africa, probably another 2.5 million grey or used imports coming in. Going forward, as an auto manufacturer, this is very much the last frontier.
South Africa has always seen itself as the automotive hub of the continent. But is that future guaranteed? What happens when the rest of the continent no longer needs that bridge?
Stellantis has by far the biggest industrial footprint in Africa. A full CKD operation that it owns in Algeria, very big in Morocco, a small CKD operation in Tunisia, in Egypt, two SKD operations, one in Ghana and one in Nigeria, where we have direct investment in the Nigerian one. And the only area where we're not is in the south, in South Africa at the moment, and hence our decision to go that route.
This raises a fascinating question. Is Africa the last greatest automotive market, or will it never fully unlock? Africa is one of the fastest urbanizing regions in the world. Over the next few decades, hundreds of millions of people will move from rural areas into cities, and mobility will become essential, not optional.
If you contrast, you take the total Africa population today, yes, it's 50 plus countries. You relate it to India. India has a similar population, similar GDP, but the Indian automotive market is 3+ million. We're at 1.2. So the potential here is huge.
Africa isn't a small market waiting to grow, it's a massive market that hasn't fully motorized yet. In most developed markets, car ownership is already saturated. Here, it's just beginning.
In order for our market to grow and survive, you have to have a growing vehicle market. The more cars we can sell, the more cars we can see on our roads. 180 out of 1,000 people own vehicles in South Africa. If we can grow that number, get it to 200 people, we can start seeing even downstream in the value chain, more people coming on and more sort of jobs being created. So it's so important that we address this challenge of not having enough people being able to access mobility in South Africa.
But low vehicle ownership doesn't just represent a gap. It represents the potential future demand at an extraordinary scale. Millions of first-time buyers, entire markets still forming. The question is, who is going to be ready when it does?
So in the North African, we got some corporations like in Algeria, in Egypt, CKD, and Algeria, we are busy with talking about some of the corporations. And Morocco's, because of the industry, EVs developing quite fast. We are also talking about some of the operations, manufacturers there. But coming to Sub-Sahara, I think we putting a very good, to put South Africa into a very important positioning about a Sub-Sahara Africa.
I think you might have heard me talk about an opportunity where we want to position ourselves as an anchor for Isuzu in the continent. So we're looking at West Africa. It's a huge, if you think of the countries in West Africa, it's a huge economy. For our light commercial vehicles, we export to 30 African countries, medium and heavy commercial vehicles, mainly in South Africa, and then a few countries outside of South Africa.
For decades, South Africa has been one of the only countries in Africa with a fully developed automotive manufacturing ecosystems. That makes South Africa more than just a market. We're a gateway. We're a bridge between global manufacturing and African demand.
What's of course key of importance is that the South African government negotiates trade deals with other countries, let's say, in order to ensure that the entire South African auto industry remains intact.
As other regions begin to industrialize, as global manufacturers look beyond South Africa, there's a very real possibility that the centre of gravity could shift. And if it does, South Africa doesn't just lose market share, it risks losing relevance. In West Africa, population growth, economic expansion, those are accelerating rapidly. Countries like Nigeria and Ghana are becoming critical markets.
I know obviously the EU, the UK and South Africa have a good relationship which we can rely on at the moment, but we need to find other countries to export our goods to if the US and South Africa don't find an agreement.
Across the continent, different regions are moving at different speeds. For manufacturers, this is where future demand could surge. And for this region, a second advantage is also emerging: proximity. Closer to Europe, closer to the Middle East, closer to global trade routes. Countries like Morocco and Egypt, look at them on the map. They are positioning themselves as manufacturing hubs linked directly into European and global supply chains. In some cases, vehicles can move from factory in this region to European markets in hours or days. Compare that to South Africa, we sit further away, longer trade routes, more expensive and higher logistics complexity.
We're looking at the continent, and I think as we previously mentioned in my prior engagement, there's a new platform or product we code it EC15. South Africa is competing for the bid to produce that vehicle in South Africa, but we're bidding against North Africa and we're bidding against South of Europe. And I think that's the one thing that customers don't realize is we're competing on a global scale. We unfortunately have a disadvantage being at the tip of Africa. So our transport cost, getting components down, assembling vehicles and shipping them up to the northern export markets is a challenge. So we've got to find a way that we can compete with other manufacturing markets.
This raises a difficult question for South Africa. If global manufacturers have a choice, why would they choose the one further south? Why would they choose South Africa? But there's a deeper constraint that may be keeping South Africa in the game. That is affordability. Even in South Africa, new vehicles are becoming increasingly expensive. Across much of Africa, they remain out of reach for the majority of customers, which is why used imports dominate many African markets. In South Africa, we have a mature, in fact a world-class banking system that allows credit to extend to a large number of people. Think about that school teacher. That school teacher can walk into a dealership and access finance through brands like ABSA, Nedbank or Westbank. That allows them to buy that new nice SUV, that Chery Tiggo 4, that Corolla Cross. Now take that to the rest of Africa. That same person walks into a dealership, no access to credit. That same car is not accessible because he cannot get the finance or the credit support to be able to buy that vehicle. That limits growth and limits opportunity in the rest of Africa. But there is a mechanism that could change the trajectory of the entire continent. That is the African Continental Free Trade Area. At its core, it's an agreement between African countries to reduce trade barriers between them. That means lower tariffs on goods moving across borders, fewer restrictions on trade, and the potential for a truly connected continental market.
We really believe in the journey that's happening on the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And automotive is in fact one of the 4 key pillars of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. So for us, having the industrial presence in Africa, we need to be in the south. We need to ensure that we can be part of that future growth in Africa and be a strong supporter of the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which automotive is a key element of it.
If it works, it can enable something Africa has never truly had before, a coordinated automotive ecosystem. One where one country manufactures vehicles, another produces components, parts, all of it moving seamlessly between countries for one connected system. But perhaps the more important question is this: are African markets competing with each other, or should they be building something together? Does every country need to manufacture vehicles, or is there a more powerful model? One where some countries build vehicles, others specialize in components, others provide critical raw materials, others unlock trade relationships with global partners. But growth alone doesn't build an industry. Coordination does, strategy does, planning does, partnership does. These are exactly the kind of questions that will shape discussions at DealerCon 2026, 17th of September, Santon Convention Centre. Industry leaders, OEMs, policymakers will come together to explore what comes next. Africa could become the fastest growing automotive market in the world. The opportunity is real, but so are the risks. In the next episode, we explore the role Chinese manufacturers are already playing in reshaping South Africa's automotive industry. Are they driving competition on a much-needed value-for-money product, or quietly redefining the market for its own exclusive benefit?